Some say my future not that bright. Mm. Some say I'm useless, unholy, and I'm not living right. But at the beginning of the day, look in the mirror and say, I am somebody. Oh. Well, I believe the future.
Joining us now from New York, he's in town for celebration of life of Dr. James Cone, one of our most renowned black theologians, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Rainbow Push Coalition. Reverend, God bless you. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mark.
Your thoughts and reflections on Professor Cone, if you will.
Well, for so long, white supremacists had put Christ above culture. It could put culture above Christ. Make Christ with the image of the culture, without any regard for slaves or white supremacy. And he changed that. He challenged that, and put a more realistic picture of the image of God. You know, Moses married Zipporah, an African woman. David married Bathsheba, an African woman. In that lineage, Jesus came. He had the dimensions of theological understanding that had not been practiced before, besides just outstanding exegesis. And so he's an outstanding writer and thinker and activist, and so is his brother, by the way. And so we honor his life and legacy today. We're also this week going before the Congressional Black Caucus to get legislation to make lynching a federal crime. Lynching is not yet a federal crime. After 4,000 lynchings, it's not yet a federal crime. And lynching is not just a thing of the past, Mark. Two young black men in April in Oklahoma were killed by two whites and dismembered by their parents and put in the bottom of a river with cement tied to their ankles. That was lynching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fred Hampton was killed in the middle of the night in his sleep by a police officer. That was a lynching. And so lynching is not yet a federal crime. So I've asked Chapter Black Caucus, Richardson, to put forth, and they intend to do just that.
How much more do we know about this situation in Oklahoma? Is it being investigated properly as a lynching or as a hate crime?
No, it's not investigated as a lynching. They wipe lynching out because lynching is embarrassing. It's humiliating to the lynch, but it's embarrassing to the lynchers, the mobsters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, there was a guy named Willie Earl that was lynched. Went to 25 cab drivers that went to the police and went to the headquarters of the police and took him out with the key, took him out of jail. The jail didn't protect him and shot him many times and shot him in the face, point blank range, and left him in the gutter. They lynched him.
Mm.
There was never a conviction for lynching. 27 guys came to court, but not one was convicted. So thank God for Brian Sievers, who is in fact forcing a new conversation about the legacy of lynching and slavery.
You had Congressman Bobby Rush with you just the other day, and he told the story, Reverend Jackson, about narrowly escaping a lynching himself.
Well, we think of Emmett Till being taken from his home, right?
Right.
Out in lynched at night. Well, Bobby Rush was supposed to be home with Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, and the state's attorney invaded their house and had the outline of the house. They killed them in their sleep. Fortunately, Bobby Rush was not home. He's a congressman.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been killed as well.
Yeah.
Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were killed, lynched in the bed by the police. That's a lynching. It should be seen as such.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, anti-lynching legislation, this is an initiative you're discussing with, you said, the Congressional Black Caucus, correct?
Yes, and Ida B. Wells launched it many years ago, and Dr. Du Bois in NAACP for many years. Anti-lynching was the reason why they were founded. 5,000 blacks were lynched at minimum, and that does not include massacres between 1880 and 1950. And so we ought to earth it reconciliation. You can't just close these cases on public murder.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting. I mean, I think that it's important to draw the parallel. I believe James Cone's last book. Well, there's another one that's coming out posthumously, but James Cone's last book was The Cross and the Lynching Tree, where he drew a direct parallel between lynchings of black people and the death of Christ, which Professor Cone taught us in and of itself was a lynching, Reverend Jackson.
It was a form of terror, and we see more and more cases. A woman was a teacher, and white kids were throwing rocks at her. She said you shouldn't throw rocks as an adult. They went up and told their parents that she told them, and they lynched her for chastising. The minister the next day said it's not right what they did to her yesterday. They lynched him.
Mm.
They burn bodies whole before crowds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
It's been erased by history. It must not be erased. It must be dug up and made public.
You went to Montgomery to the lynching museum.
It's the most phenomenal thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of all the museums in the country, the most meaningful to me at this point is the one done by Brian Stevenson, and the lynching is done so specifically, so exquisitely. It shows for 4,700 blocks where they were lynched, and the conditions they've done tremendous 10 years of research. Don't miss it. Don't miss it.
Very, very important, folks. We had Brian on the radio too, but that is something that we all need to stop by and pay our respects to. 4,000 is the number they have, a little over 4,000, and yet we know that's not all of them. Those are just the ones we know about, Reverend Jackson. There were thousands more we don't even know about.
The irony is those who were lynched, in a strange way, feel good that the story of their relatives is being unearthed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those who did the lynching don't feel good. They lived on. Their legacy is the lynch mob. Those who are victims of lynch mobs feel different than those who perpetrated lynching.
Reverend Jackson, it's clear, and I guess some people are not prepared to accept this or acknowledge it, but lynching is back, is it not?
Well, when the 4 police shoot Diallo in the back 41 times and walk away, white sheets of blue uniform, that's a lynching.
Yeah.
Alton started in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's a lynching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When innocent people, they call extrajudicial killing. But police say about extrajudicial. They go through a extrajudicial process. It's lynching.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So today, folks, Reverend Jackson will join literally thousands of us at Riverside Church in Harlem. Actually, where Dr. King gave his famous Time to Break Silence speech about ending the Vietnam War. Y.T. Walker, who's also outrun us to glory, once said that Dr. King signed his death warrant in that very church. Dr. King would probably have preferred to have taught at Union and pastored Riverside. He was offered to do so at one point in his life and his career, but instead he gave his life on the battlefield. That was a calling that James Cone answered, and yet still, even in that academic role, Professor Cone taught us not to hate ourselves. There's a direct relationship between saying, I am somebody, and acknowledging God and Christ as looking like you and not looking like someone else, being taught that the only image of God or Christ is white. That had a great deal to do.
He challenged Michelangelo's image of Christ, made it more real. Why did you take somebody to Egypt to hide them as a refugee? If you didn't look like the people you hide them among.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At the top of the hour, we're going to air, Reverend, an interview I did with James Cone 10 years ago. He responds to Sean Hannity and the GOP's attacks against him and Jeremiah Wright during the Obama campaign. We're going to re-air that at the top of the hour, and then at half past, some of your friends, including Ivor Carruthers and Reverend Willie Wilson and your protege, Cassius Rudolph. Cassius is going to join us. He's Dr. King's last student, the last student he advised. He'll be getting his master's next week, and they're going to reflect on Professor Cone, and then we'll all be at the funeral at 11 a.m. The author of Black Liberation Theology and God of the Oppressed. You know, he said to me, you all hear in this interview, he said that God takes on the form of oppressed people. And in his context, God was black, but he also said to me that any group suffering from oppression, God takes on the form of that group, Reverend Jackson.
In Egypt, God heard the groans of the oppressed. Moses emerges from that. Jesus was born a poor Jew, born under occupation, born under a death warrant. He escaped Egypt to salvage his life as a baby, and ultimately lynched on the cross at Calvary for the redemption of the world. He was an ethnic minority.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend, we will see you a little bit later on this morning at Riverside Church, and we look forward to it. Folks, also the Rainbow Push International Convention is coming up.
The 13th to the 16th of June, we have on that our gospel. It's going to be B.B. Winans and Reverend Charles Jenkins and Audrey Du Bois Harris and the Mass Choir. Brian Stevenson is coming. We have coming Mandela's Daughters.
Yes.
It's going to be a tremendous convention, June 13th through 16th. You'll hear more about it in days to come.
Looking forward to that as well. We're all gathering in Chicago. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, folks, president of the Rainbow Push Coalition. RainbowPush.org to find out more about the convention, too. Reverend, thank you, man.
Thank you. Stay woke.
Yes, sir. Stay woke. Stay woke. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. 866-99-SIRIUS. Again, we will be at Riverside Church a bit later. At the top of the hour, the Reverend James Cone, the Reverend Dr. James Cone, distinguished professor at Union Theological Seminary. We spoke 10 years ago in a very extensive interview. Why is this important? He's also going to explain, we talk politics a great deal. You know, I don't proselytize, and I don't mean to now. But one of the things that happened when I first came on these airwaves was that some of you, because of the image of evangelicalism and the way evangelicalism had hurt everyone's perception of Christianity. When I first came on these airwaves, which used to be Sirius XM Left, many of you were worried, oh, he's a minister, and we don't like Christianity. But we welcome everyone, and we embrace even atheists here. And by the time I explain my brand of Christianity, I think a lot of attitudes were changed. I dare say what you are about to hear at the top of the hour, if many of you had heard it this way in your life, probably would have a very different view of Christianity. And those of you who are no longer Christians or who are agnostic atheists maybe would have never become that way. You're going to hear something very, very different. Those of you around 10 years ago heard it then, but you're going to hear it again at the very top when we come back, the Reverend Dr. James Cone, in his own words. And then after that, a very, very esteemed panel of guests. We're streaming now. We're going to stream that too when we return. Don't go away. Sirius XM Progress 127, Resistance Radio. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. Long to the spirit of Dr. James Cone. This is MIP.
I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Maybe down and pushed away, but at the end of the day, I am somebody.